AITA for not putting a stop to my stepdaughter, correcting the food the host made. I, 32F, have been dating a widower with a daughter. Nara, 12F. For a year. We currently moved to a new city because of my boyfriend's job promotion. I freelance and are in the middle of settling down. Nara and I get along very well. Nara plays tennis. Since the move, she's been in the school team and competed a bit. The parents of her teammates often organize some kind of get-together, and her father and I tried our best to have her attend most of them. I would say Nara got along well with all her teammates, and I thought the parents were friendly. Last week the team captain's parents hosted a potluck party at their place. Nara and I brought over some brownies. There really was a lot of all kinds of food. The team captain's father did most of the greeting, telling us his wife was preparing something special for us all. Once everyone was at the party, the wife came out of the kitchen with a special dish, a recipe of a specific country. Now, Nara looks white, but her late mother actually came from that very country. The wife host began to serve everyone and share her recipe and ingredients, and how it was not that difficult to make once you substitute the local ingredients, and feel free to ask her for tips. At this point Nara spoke up, saying that the authentic recipes included such and how their particular scent and taste added to the whole experience of eating the dish. She said if so many substitutes were used, they may as well call the dish a different name. The wife host looked a little unsettled and told Nara that she and her husband traveled a lot in their youth, and she had the dish many times and knew what it was supposed to taste like, and the substituted ingredients work just fine. Nara then said her mom was from the dish's country of origin, and she understood that some ingredients were hard to come by, but substituting so much turned the dish into something else altogether. During all this I mostly kept silent. Nara was not being rude, just matter of fact, and as this was a matter of her heritage I thought she could speak up. The host wife spluttered a bit before saying everyone should just go ahead and enjoy her dish, no matter the name. Everyone tried, though nobody asked for seconds. I personally thought it was a little bland, and there was a lot of leftovers. Nara's team captain later called her, thanking her for putting her annoying stepmom in her place. When my boyfriend came back from his business trip and learned of this, however, he thought I should have reprimanded Nara for being rude to the host. He also had a talk with Nara, and she seemed to be sulking a bit, though she was not grounded or anything. AITA? Info. What is the dish? YTA. Not a huge but still. Being a gracious guest is a skill everyone should learn. Was your stepdaughter technically right? Probably. But she made the host uncomfortable unnecessarily. I get that it may be a pain point for her, given her mother passed away, but she was actually being rude. The host wanted to share something with her guests that she obviously was proud of, and your stepdaughter called her out in front of everyone. YTA. Nara was extremely rude. This woman opened up her home and spent time and money to prepare this meal. Nara trashed it before she was ate it. Maybe you and Nara don't realize this, but there are different ways to prepare a cultural dish. Not everyone in a particular culture prepares their food the exact same way. Maybe the dish tastes similarly to the way it was prepared when the hostess ate it during her travels. Your stepdaughter needs to learn graciousness and respect. If I pulled something like this when I was her age, my mom would make me write an apology letter to the mom. Then she would volunteer our family to host the next team get-together and make me do all of the cooking by myself, so I would learn to have respect for people who invite me into their home and prepare a meal for me. The team captain is also an ungrateful brat. If her stepmom is so annoying, she needs to handle the hosting duties for these gatherings herself. YTA. And you can bet Nara won't be invited to any more team events. She is a guest, matter of fact, is just a polite way to say rude. Nara could have said, when I had it the chef used X, Y, and Z, or, I have never had it with local ingredients, and left it at that. But it is rude to comment on the dish before it has even been eaten, and then said comments should have been made privately and to her parents. Not to the host. Thank you. Thank you is what you say to the host. I am reminded of a British TV show host who commented, if it had less than different ingredient it would be less than different dish. And the horrified and insulted chef replied, if my grandmother had wheels she'd be a bicycle. Quote, I'm honestly split on this one. There's no doubt that Nara's behavior would be considered breathtakingly rude by most people's standards. Social etiquette dictates that if someone is hosting you and cooking for you, you need to be polite and gracious. Even if you don't like the food, you don't have to lie, but show that you are grateful for their efforts. And for goodness sake, don't publicly embarrass them. On the other hand, it sounds like Nara, despite her age, does have greater expertise about this dish, and the adults should respect her cultural and familial connection with it. I don't think Nara should be punished, but some advice and tips on how to graciously handle similar situations in the future would be to her benefit. Nah. You're not wrong. You're just an asshole. Nara needs to learn some manners and respect, and you should be intervening in these situations and speaking to her afterwards. YTA. NTA. You've only been dating her dad for a year. You've barely even built the foundation of a relationship with her, and she was probably correct in what she was saying. Anybody expecting you to be comfortable publicly reprimanding her at this point is delusional and clearly does not understand how delicate of a process growing a step relationship with a child of that age is. The correct thing to do here would be to give her some private guidance on how to approach these things more diplomatically in future so as to come across as less abrasive when making a point. Surprisingly unpopular but NTA. I'm an Indonesian living in Australia, and the number of times some white person has made authentic Indonesian angers me. It's not that the dish itself isn't good, but they substitute the main spices of the dish into something milder, and it just makes it bland. Your stepdaughter is standing up for her heritage, and I think it's beautiful and empowering. I lost my mom a few years ago, and I've been living abroad for 8 years now. Food is one way to connect with my mom and my heritage, and I'll always be defensive on how people make it. Not to gatekeep, but more to celebrate. Stop slapping the word authentic around and start using the word fusion. NTA. Honestly, the wife seems to be appropriating the dish. I would be offended if someone tried making a traditional dish from my culture and basically bastardized it and said, it's easy as long as you substitute basically everything. But I bet people will be pissed at me for even saying this. I'm going NTA. This sounds like the team captain parents have some white privilege mixed with some cultural appropriation going on and weren't happy when your daughter called them out. If Nara wanted to speak up and defend a dish from her family's heritage, she's welcome to. It might be uncomfortable for the person appropriating the culture, but it's not rude to point out that if you take all the ingredients and change them, it's no longer that dish. 12 Yos also have zero chill. Have you met one? They'll tell you exactly what they think from their fresh eyes. And as for not her job to police what her boyfriend's daughter does when she isn't being rude or dangerous. NTA. YTA. Even if you're right, it's in poor taste to correct someone's recipe when she invited you to her home and cooked for you, especially in front of everyone. Nara is a child, so she might not understand. But as the adult, You should have intervened. The fact that the team captain called and thanked Nara for putting her stepmother in her place only shows it was humiliating for that woman. This could harm Nara because that woman may talk to other parents about Nara's lack of manners, making others unwilling to invite her to their homes. NTA is someone who has a mixed heritage and had exposure to a variety of different cuisines. Growing up, nothing grates me more than someone trying to serve up an authentic dish which is nothing like what it's supposed to be. The substitution of ingredients is iffy. There's certain ingredients which are synonymous with a dish, and if you change them then it just isn't the same. You wouldn't serve a pizza with no cheese, or a curry without rice, or a roast dinner without gravy. The type of pastry used for a samosa, patty, sausage roll or Cornish pasty is vital to the recipe. The herbs and spices you use make a huge impact. I can tell if they're not present. If someone wants to be experimental with their cooking, they should be open to feedback. Also, the claim of not being able to get the ingredients is a bit off to me. In my experience, it's not difficult to get hold of unusual ingredients if you know where to shop. We have Jamaican, African, Chinese and Polish shops in abundance here in shops and to order online. If you want to cook an authentic dish, then you should make the effort to do it properly. Go and source the ingredients and find out the techniques, and until then you don't call it that, but just something you invented. Visiting a place on a holiday doesn't give you free rein to claim to be an expert. I lived with international students in college. If I had made a meal based off their culture and invited them to eat it but made it incorrectly, or the substitutions made it completely different, I'd have had no problems with them speaking up. It doesn't have to be a rude call-out. Just explaining it's not the same thing to them. I might be embarrassed, but whatever. Who am I to argue with someone whose culture it actually is? Plus, they probably would have recommended ways to make it more authentic and would know of ethnic stores to go to. I'm open to learning and improving. I truly was shocked. The top comment said ah, and that thousands agreed. I'm all for politeness. I'm terrified of being seen as rude or wrong. But there's a limit to etiquette, and misrepresenting a culture and acting like you're knowledgeable in something you're not is where I draw the line. The host offered to give tips. It's one thing to say a dish is inspired by a culture. It's another to say, this is the same culture, ethnic dish, but I had to substitute several of the ethnic, cultural ingredients. Anyone want tips on making this cultural dish? Just present it as the Americanized, or wherever you're from, version of the dish instead of claiming it's the real thing. I will say the food and ingredients do matter. We don't know the details. You can certainly substitute things in some dishes without it making a big difference, but not in others. I'm just being honest is a poor excuse for being rude. Candor is being forthcoming in what you say. Respect is being considerate in how you say it. Being direct with the content of your feedback doesn't prevent you from being thoughtful about the best way to deliver it. I am going to go against the grain and say NTA. It sounds like THR host had butchered the food the country as from, and trying to sound as if she knew a lot about it when she didn't. The host sounds tiresome and entitled. Yes, OTS important to be civil and courteous as a guest, but that doesn't mean to be silent when someone is proudly butchering your food. Also, this line, Nara's team captain later called her, thanking her for putting her annoying stepmom in her place, makes it sound like the host does this been a regular. NTA. If I was making a dish from another heritage, and I swapped out ingredients, sure, I'd be a bit embarrassed. But who would I be to tell a young girl that she's wrong about her own heritage, whether her mom was alive or not? I'm not from that heritage. I picked it up from travels. That's like going into an Italian restaurant. and thinking you can make their recipes but change it up and then tell them you know their food. Because you've traveled to Italy. Like you said, she wasn't being rude, she was trying to educate. Kids are allowed to educate, but most adults can't handle it and just say they're rude. Woman facepalming, medium skin tone. Nah. Yikes. I'm surprised at all the comments saying you should have told Nara off. If someone had swapped out a heap of ingredients for a Thanksgiving dinner, I bet everyone would say it wasn't rude to point that out. Nara knew the dish and the host insisting that they knew what was right over someone whose cultural heritage is from that country smacks of privilege to me. If I cooked a traditional dish and someone who knew better than me told me it wasn't right, I'd be asking how to make it correctly and asking where to get the ingredients. I'm not gonna vote either way. It is rude. But also it is fair to point out when someone is making claims that are incorrect. You should have intervened and said they can discuss the recipe later. Let's all eat now. The woman sounds pretentious and likes the idea that she knows exotic stuff from her super interesting travels. But in reality she's watered down and changed things so it's easy, but she can still brag about the travel. NTA. Everyone seems to be forgetting a few key details here. Nara has had her world turned upside down. Lost her mother, her home, her town, her friends. I'm sure she's doing her best to navigate her grief and puberty and the challenges of starting over in a new place. Was her reaction a bit rude? Yes. Could OP have gently advised Nara to let it go? Yes. But OP is not even her stepmother. She's just dating Nara's dad. I'm guessing that Nara felt protective of her mother's culture in that moment and perhaps feels that it's one of the few tangible things she has left of her mom. Lesson learned for OP to step in politely in the future if needed. Nara's dad needs to call the family to explain her loss and talk with her about how to handle these kind of situations.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. AmITheAsshole is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.